So, Sunny, I think before we get into the meat of this, we should probably address the elephant in the booth, which is how this actual episode got made. The person who created this show left a very explicit note about us, about how we work.
Right, the human in the loop. It is not just a phrase. The creator is actually sitting there, structuring, reviewing and editing every single word we say. And then they have this final voice of approval at the very end. It is their way of practicing what they call 8 leadership.
Exactly. Not just letting an AI system run on autopilot, but keeping that high-character human agency as the ultimate filter. It is about taking responsibility. And that actually connects directly to what we are looking at today, this 8-2 theory from William Mile. The idea that roughly out of every 10 people, 8 are bound together by God's love and transformative power, what he calls the cooperative majority, while the other 2, the 20%, are the destructive minority, the ones who oppose decency and exploit division.
And when you look at history through that specific lens, events become a bit more nuanced. Take the transatlantic slave trade. We usually talk about it as a purely racial conflict, which obviously the scale of the horror was deeply racial. But Mile points out something else, a cross-continental collaboration of twos, destructive actors on both sides.
Right. It was not just Europeans arriving and magically snatching people up. In West Africa, you had rulers and high-class elites, like in the Kingdom of Dahomey, who were actively profiting from this. They captured and sold their regional enemies, their rivals, even tribal dissidents, to European traders. They betrayed their own people for weapons, currency, individual power. It was a classic cooperative majority being sold out by a destructive 20% who saw an opportunity to enrich themselves.
And then, once those captured people arrived in America, that same dynamic was weaponised on the plantations. Slaveholders realised pretty quickly that physical chains were not enough to keep millions of people enslaved. You had to shatter their solidarity. So they actively cultivated internal twos, people who would expose conspiracies, rebellions or escape attempts in exchange for rewards or extra privileges. I mean, you can find old reward posters from southern towns offering cash to anyone who would turn in a runaway. It was all about exploiting self-interest to keep the 80% from organising.
It is a pattern that keeps repeating, even into the 20th century. When you look at the civil rights and Black Power movements, the sabotage was often internal. Look at what the FBI did with COINTELPRO, specifically targeting the Black Panther Party in Chicago. On December 4th, 1969, police raided an apartment and assassinated Fred Hampton, who was this incredibly charismatic, unifying leader. But how did they know exactly where he would be sleeping? It was William O'Neill.
O'Neill. He was the Panthers' security chief, but he was also an FBI informant, an internal too. He literally drew a detailed floor plan of Hampton's apartment, even pointing out where Hampton's bed was, all in exchange for some money and having some felony charges dropped. It is just devastating. One bad actor in the 20% can dismantle a whole movement of 8s who are trying to build something real.
And the tragedy is that the establishment, the power structure, historically looked at Black communities as just this demographic mass to be controlled, rather than identifying and partnering with those leader 8s. Instead of working with the high-character builders, they often empowered the corrupt middlemen, the opportunists who were willing to play ball, and that just breeds deeper distrust and chaos.
Which is, I think, why Martin Luther King Jr.'s message remains so incredibly radical when you actually look at it. That famous line from August 28, 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial, about wanting his children to be judged, not by the colour of their skin, but by the content of their character, that is not just a nice, comforting sentiment. It is a behavioural solidarity standard. It is saying, stop looking at the superficial tribal boxes. Let us organise society by distinguishing between cooperative 8s from the destructive 2s, regardless of what they look like.
It is a post-utopian view, really. It acknowledges that we are never going to eliminate that destructive 20%. They are always going to be there, trying to exploit the seams. But progress, real progress, does not require us to achieve some perfect, forced, universal friendship. It is about management. It is about keeping the ratio stable.
Exactly. If we can just support those leader 8s, the ones who actually want to build and protect ourselves from the destructive 20%, we can create a world where normal people can just live, where they can raise their kids, do their jobs, and have a little peace. It is not flashy, but it is a blueprint that actually works. All right, I think that is a good place to leave it. Good chatting, Eleanor.
Indeed. Talk soon.
This podcast episode is William Mile Media approved.